Habaim, Bruchot Habaot, welcome Wesley, Stephen, Julie, Hector, Eric, and Danny. So I think, Julie, this is your first time here, yes?
It is, yeah.
Is it your first time with us?
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
And Eric also. You been here before, Eric? No?
Me?
You're muted. Yes.
Yes, I've been here
Have you
before.
been here?
Once before, I think.
Okay, good. So welcome back, Danny, welcome back. And Hector, welcome back. And Wesley, welcome back. So, and Steve too, of course, everybody. So I'm very excited to be with you tonight. The 2 weeks sometimes feel very long between seeing all of you, and life feels like it's truly, well, it's spring. And when we walk outside and there are all these crocuses and flowers and the world feels like it's opening up. It's truly, spring is welcoming us. And our topic tonight is going to be our spring holiday of Pesach. So let's start. Ned Hanover is our wonderful angel today. And so he's going to put up the first slide, which is our blessing. So our blessing that thanks God for enabling us to dive into the rich waters of Torah.
One moment.
Susan, welcome. Really glad you're here.
One second.
And you can unmute and we can say it together. And we'll make it a little bigger so we can see the words, please.
Let me see if I can do that.
Okay.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Don't know if I can do that.
Never mind. We'll do our best. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam asher
Anu
totav v'tzivanu sok
B'divrei
Torah.
Torah.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. So our texts today are going to be from the Haggadah. And I'd like you now, Ned, please, to give us the second slide. So one of the things about the Haggadah is that we keep writing it again. And this, some of you know that I had the great opportunity of working on a Haggadah. The one that's in the middle, in the center, is a book that I spent 3 years working on. And I worked with an amazing, amazing artist, Ruth Weisberg. And new Haggadot have come out since. So I hope that everyone who's on tonight with us is going to be able to be at a Seder. RS has a couple that you can be on. There's lots of stuff online. There will be Seders online for those of us who aren't ready to sit in a room with others. But I really hope that everyone has some Seder to go to, whether it's actually sitting at a table with people or being on Zoom together. And there's some really amazing things on Zoom that to make it work. But here are some books. Of course, the Haggadah is the book that we use, and lahagid, the verb lahagid means to tell. So it's the telling of our story. And the one that is blue and orange is a brand new Haggadah that came out this year. From the Reform movement, and there's fabulous poetry in it. Yeah, Heshi, do you have your hand up or are you just waving?
I just wanted to let people know that on August 1st, there is a April 1st, there's a social justice Seder that Prism and RS Women are collaborating on. It's a 1 hour Seder. So it's not the whole dinner, it's just really the Seder plate. And it's at 6 o'clock.
Great. 6
I'm
o'clock on April 1st. Thank
on
you.
April 1st. And you have to
Wonderful.
register and you'll get a link.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to show you a little taste of a few great Haggadot, and maybe some of you will use some of these. One of them, sometimes it's really fun to have more than one Haggadah at a table, so that we have a chance to chime in with very different voices. Next slide, please. There's also many, many books written about the Seder, and this table has 4 books about Pesach and one new Haggadah that just came out last year, in the voice of our mothers. It's quite a wonderful one, and I'm fortunate that my friend, the co-author Carol Fox Prescott, sent me this copy of her beautiful book. And then there are many books about how to make Seder and Pesach even more alive for us. I also want to just point out Pesach for the Rest of Us by Marge Piercy. Many of you know Marge Piercy's work. She's really one of the foremost poets in America, and she made this offering for us a few years ago. So what is LGBT about Seder? So this is where I get to, you can take the slide off, please, Ned. And I just want to see everybody, you're going to pitch in and you're going to answer this question. So, here we are, a group of gay and ally friends, LGBT community with our wonderful buddies who are allies. And so just some thoughts. Yeah, Fred, let's start with you.
So for me, Passover has a lot of meaning as a queer person, because I think until I came out of the closet, I felt enslaved, enslaved to try and be like others. So I feel like it was a major liberation for me when I came out of the closet and became fully myself. So I see that symbolism with Passover.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Some more voices. You can actually raise your actual hand because I can see everybody. Who would like to share something? And it could be something problematic. I mean, here we have this family gathering, and I'm thinking there's probably some experience at Seder tables gathered that as I look into your faces. Jackie, welcome. Anyone else want to add to what Fred said? Steve.
Well, I certainly remember from the time I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, large gatherings of 20, 25 family members, and how they all fit is beyond me because the space was not big. But it was a joyous occasion that went on half the night. And I've tried to maintain that. Have never missed a gathering of either friends or family. And it's very special.
Great. Thank you. Someone else want to say something? I mean, here in this weird time where none of us were, or I don't know, very few of us were with anyone except on Zoom last year. And this time it's going to be a little different for some of us, but not all of us. So other thoughts about Seder in general, or about our experience as LGBT folks and allies? Muriel?
I just want Seders, and I didn't grow up with Seders, and I always felt like it was something I missed. And the first really, the incredible Seder I went to was with a family, a friend of my daughter's who lived on Long Island invited me to their Seder. And it was like so incredible. I loved it. And then David, my son-in-law's father, his family always made these huge seders that were, there were no little kids. So there was this intellectual kind of flavor, a lot of questioning and examining and analyzing. And I really loved it. And so because of that, seders have become somewhat important to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Ned.
So my first Seder was the Seder that I led because I went to Hebrew school. And when I was 8 years old, I came home and I said, Mom, Dad, how come we're not doing a Seder? So we had a Seder with family, with aunts and an aunt and an uncle and cousins, my immediate family. And I had all these different Haggadot for some reason. They were not all the same. I must have had about 6 different ones. And my 8-year-old solution to that was I actually created this whole table of prayers and what page each one was on. And, so if we were going to say the second blessing for the wine, I would say that's on this page and this page and this page every time that was the page announcement. And so it went on probably a little too long, I imagine.
Wow. So Ted led his family, and because of you, your family had a Seder. And there you were already organizing things in life.
And I've led it ever since. 50 years later, I'm still leading the Seder.
Oh, wow. Wow. A beautiful story.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So Chip and Henry, please.
So growing up, Seder had already moved to my aunt and uncle's. But before that, I always had heard about the stories of my grandparents having Seder in black tie, and it going on all night as others have shared. But I also remember when I first came out, and it was Henry's first Seder, and my brother at the one end of the table saying, "Why do we have to have Seder with these 2 faggots at the end of the table?" And that I'm very close to that brother now. We talk every day. Life changes, we get forgiveness, and it's wonderful. But it was a really difficult time for me. And I remember losing my cool after that comment. And I remember his daughter crying, "Daddy, why do you have to be so mean?" But so, it's family holidays, family get-togethers, and we have those. And I think that you had alluded to that. So
Yeah. So Danny, I see your hand.
Thank you. For me, I think Passover, especially being part of the LGBTQ community, being LGBTQ allows us to have a chosen family throughout our lives, in addition to our assigned family. And I think having that chosen family has given us the perspective and the exposure to so many perspectives and identities and people, just through moving away. And I've lived in cities around the country and around the world. And I think that perspective and exposure to all the different identities, for me, Passover is a celebration of freedom of oppression, but also recognition of those who are still oppressed, and those that we honor and recognize who are still going through struggles of oppression in our country, whether that's people of color or trans Black women who are severely oppressed, or immigrants or disabled, or internationally, whether it's solidarity with Palestinian oppression or other oppressions that are happening around the world. It's an opportunity to celebrate our history, recognize the special journey that we as LGBTQ people have been on, to recognize that perspective and recognize those who are still going through that oppression, and how we can really use our privilege to contribute to it.
Thank you. Beautifully said. Thank you. others who want to jump in about this? So it was really hard for me to think about what I would focus on in 1 hour, because I've never even done a Seder that only took an hour. And so, oh my goodness. And Danny reminds me about a slide that I didn't prepare, but it's a line in the Haggadah that says, B'chol dor vador, and the original is, B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. In every generation, the word dor, I'm an American, so I pronounce it door, but I've worked a lot. I've worked really hard on my reishes over the years, and I still can't say them. The word dor means generation. So bechol dor vador, chol is like kol, or chol means all. So in every generation, chayav adam. You know the word adam? It's Adam. So chayav adam, a person, a man. That's the original Haggadah. Chayav adam lirot et atzmo. Each man should see himself ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim, as if he came out of Egypt. So when I had the honor of working on this Haggadah, the open door, we said, we were putting blessings in feminized Hebrew, and I said, I can't sit with this chayav adam lirot et atzmo, even though for generations we've been told, well, man includes woman. Okay, here Hebrew is particularly challenging, and we've got some fabulous Israeli feminists working on Hebrew now in ways that I couldn't have imagined even 20 years ago. And it's awesome because the language is very gendered. And many of you have studied other languages. Romance languages generally are also gendered. So, table is either female or male, etc. So, but one of the good things about Hebrew is, if once we turn it into plural, although there are masculine and feminine plurals often refer to everybody. So we said, okay, we're just, we're not going to make ourselves crazy with this problematic Hebrew language. We're just going to turn it into plural. So we said, B'chol dor vador chayavim anu. We need to see ourselves. So not just plural, but first person plural. So, and Debbie Friedman wrote a tune to that. So we have a tune to sing for this. In every generation, we must see ourselves as if we came out of Egypt. In some ways, this year, that really fits, because Egypt is, the word for Egypt in Hebrew, many of you know, is Mitzrayim, and it means narrow place. And all of us are coming through a very, very narrow place of isolation, of being cut off. Some of us have been ill over this year. Many of us have lost beloveds, many, many Americans. We all know the shocking and horrific numbers, and people are still dying from COVID. Europe is going through a very bad time right now. So when we will say on Saturday night, and some of us on both Saturday and Sunday night, in every generation, we must see ourselves as if we are coming through a narrow place. We've been living this. And what then is the responsibility for those of us who have come out of a narrow place? And there's one of the things we do during a Seder is that we sing Halal. And some of you know from going to synagogue that the Halal Prayers are a group of Psalms, beginning with Psalm 118, and they are sung and repeated at holidays throughout the year. So we do Halal at Pesach, and we do at the Passover Seder, and we do Halal on Hanukkah, and we do Halal on Shavuot, and we do Halal every month for the new month. So it's and there are beautiful tunes and we sing it together, and it's one of the wonderful ways that we celebrate. And there's actually two parts of the Seder where we do Hallel. And several of the Psalms talk about coming through a narrow place and being answered by God in God's fullness, in God's wide space. Min ha-metzar karati ya, from metzar, like Mitzrayim, from the narrow place, I called out to God, va'anani b'merchav ya, and God answers me from a spacious place. And some of you know the name of the town in Israel, Rehavia, and that's what it means. Rechav ya, the wide space of God. I don't even know if people, secular Jews who live in Rehavia, think about that. No, I mean, how often do we think about Penn's Woods, and we who live in Pennsylvania, or what the real meaning of the city of Philadelphia is. So here, this whole idea of narrowness and breadth or width. And actually, I'm going to move my camera to show you. I am very fortunate because I not only got to work on this Haggadah, but I had an amazing partner in the artist. And one of her many gifts to me was one of the pieces of art from the Haggadah, and I have it on my wall. So since we can't meet in my house, I'm going to lift up my computer, and you're going to see, I hope, here. So this is the coming out. This is in the Haggadah. And what do you see? I can hear you if you unmute yourselves.
Two open hands.
All right, so here are open hands. Now, of course, our hands, I wish I could stand here, but I really want to see your faces. So I'm going to drop this down and get to see all of you. So hands in the Haggadah, whose hands?
They're open and they're different colors or shading or something.
Yeah, so they're open hands. So whose hands might they be in the story that we read together?
Moses.
God's hands.
Okay, they could be Moses's hands, except Moses is never mentioned in the Haggadah. Never.
Huh.
God is mentioned quite a bit.
Yes.
But also some other people who aren't mentioned are implicit to the story. And these, according to my beautiful friend, the artist, are the hands of maybe the midwives who delivered Moses, the midwives who enabled our people to come through. Maybe they're God's hands. They are the open hands that create the opening for the Jewish people to be born. So again, min hametzar, that's what birth is, coming out of a narrow place. And then there's this amazing opening. I hope some of you have been able to either give or attend a birth where there's this opening that you don't think is going to be large enough for a baby to enter the world, and it happens. And of course, we were all born out of a birth canal like that. And then, God willing, our mothers jumped off the birthing table and nursed us or enabled us to live or passed us to someone who cared for us. So here, our Seder story is the story of a birth of people. A people who become a people who come through a narrow place to praise God, to move from serving Pharaoh to serving the Holy One. And we recreate ourselves every year. We recreate our people by telling this story. And that's why our voices are so important. That's why we need to gather, whether it's going to be virtually or in person, so that we're all there, so that we are remembering a story that we did participate in one way or another. And we're taking it into our own stories. We've all had stories of coming out of Egypt, of coming out as gay folks, as coming out as Jews, as finding a path in the world. With whom do I want to walk? And how do I want to sing as I make my way in the world? Who do I want at my side? I loved what Dan said about LGBT folks needing to create a family, because some of us have been left behind by our own families, discarded. And we've looked for others who will walk with us, who will dance with us, who will sing with us, who will celebrate with us. And we've had to recreate the Jewish community to welcome us. So here, Chip's very poignant story, and I'm so glad that you're back, that your brother finally figured out you're still his brother. You're still that kid who you probably beat each other up at some point, and you stole stuff from each other, and you loved each other, and you shared those parents who loved you and probably made many mistakes like all of us. So here is our amazing story, and we sit around the table and we share these, we lift up these different symbols that change over the years. And some of us add an artichoke, and some of us add an orange, and some of us, I've been to Sedarim where we've taken off our watches and put them on the Seder table because we said, no, we're not going to wear a watch tonight. I think it would be more correct to put some of our electronics and say, we're going to have an evening without checking our phone, without checking our email, and really being present and really talking about this story. So I did pick out a couple of special things from the Haggadah, which I'd like to share with you. And I want to hear more from you. I mean, I really love the fact that we gather here in this really kind of magic circle of people of many ages and many stories, many journeys. And I bet some of you have celebrated Sedarim in some very interesting places. Danny, you said you've traveled. I've heard about the Seders in Nepal. And I've had Seders in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And I've heard amazing stories of others around the world. So let's, Ned, I'm going to ask you for the next slide. And this may be, oh, here, this one, I almost forgot about this one. Thank you. So some of you, I'm wondering just how many of you have done this particular ritual at the very beginning of the Seder? And I was reminded of it by a colleague of mine this week, a colleague who I've never met, but we were both on the same Zoom with 300 other people. And she reminded me of this, and it comes actually from a fabulous Haggadah, a pretty new one. But the tradition is quite old. And what I thought about is, I'd love to see if there are any hands of people who know what this is or who have done this before at the beginning. Okay, so Heshi and a few more. Great. So this is the 15 parts of the Seder. And there's a tune that goes along with, and it's like there are, as many of you know, there are wonderful counting songs that many of us sing at the Seder, and this is actually the first counting song, and that we sing it. And part of the fun, especially if we're going to do the whole thing, and some of us have, all those people who are staying there all night, to sing up until the place where we are. But I want to introduce the whole list to us now, and you will forgive my non-cantorial voice. So this is how one of the tunes goes. There's
We can
many.
help you do it.
Oh, great. That would be lovely. Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, magid ratzka, mohutzi matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tzafun barech, halel nirtzah. So this is the whole thing. And many of us have figured out over the years that we're just going to slide through some of them or skip some of them. But for when we do the whole thing, when we get to, for instance, Magid is telling the story. So when we get to the Magid, we would sing, Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, magid, and then we stop. So like any fun counting singing game, we have to remember that we're going to stop. But here we have the whole list of what's coming, that we begin with a blessing, we then wash our hands, we then dip the parsley or other sign of spring into the salt water. And you know, the Seder is built on the ancient symposium, and that many of our traditions come from that, with the Greeks who would sit all night and share philosophy. And part of that is that dipping vegetables was part of their custom, and that's where our dipping comes from. And then yachatz is, of course, breaking the middle matzah, and part of that is going to be hidden, the part that will become the afikomen and looked for and bribed. Perhaps there may be a bribery going on for what are you going to give me for it, because there is a tradition that we can't finish the Seder without eating some of that. Ratzah, the second hand washing, Motzi, matzah, and maror, those three always come together because we're doing the blessing. And many of you know that, we don't eat the maror by itself, although some of us have taunted each other, or, that's been part of the thing we did as a kid. Well, I'm strong enough and I'm brave enough to eat the bitter herb by myself, but no, we get to dip it in charoses. Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Ethiopian, some sweet mush mashed up that someone has created for us. And then that's the Hillel sandwich, the korech. And then shulchan orech is what we're all waiting for, to actually eat the meal. Although many of you know that karpas has become an opportunity to have food before dinner, and that there are dips and vegetables passed around as a kind of first course for some. Then after shulchan orech is tzafun, the afikomen, which becomes the dessert, and as I mentioned, the bargaining for it. And then barech is to do birkat hamazon at the end of the meal, and even, in many Haggadot, you've got a long birkat hamazon and a short birkat hamazon for those who are kind of done by then, but we're never completely done because, and what's interesting here is that we don't have Kos Eliyahu in this listing, that it becomes part of the Hallel, or it becomes part of the Nirtzach. But this is where the cup of Elijah comes in, and that I'm going to watch the time. We're going to look at it. And I mentioned Hallel. So one of the wonderful gifts that my friend Ruth, the artist of this Haggadah, gave was this beautiful illustration that goes with Hallel. I don't know if you can see it in my little box now, but if you look at, I hope you can see it. So it's a picture of an eagle. and a beautiful drawing of an eagle. And it goes with a line from Psalm 118, where our arms spread like soaring eagles, our legs as light as gazelles, we would not be able to thank you sufficiently, oh God. So some folks picked up on this after the book came out and said, this is a truly American Haggadah, which I'm not sure that Ruth had thought of that, but you know, it was a lovely thought, and it's a very strong, and I don't know if you can see the gazelles in this too. So they are down there. And then there's another drawing that I love, which is about the mountains skipping like rams, which is also part of Halal. So just, can I find that drawing quickly? Maybe not. No. I should have put a note here. Oh, it's very hard to see. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but if any of you have this book, you might think about that, because there's this wonderful line of the mountains skipping like rams as part of Halal. And then Nirtzah. So we have a conclusion. And for some, it never comes early enough. We've fallen asleep, or the children have fallen asleep in our laps, but we say next year in Jerusalem. So that's also, could be a whole hour of talking about what does that mean for us next year in Jerusalem. And it means, well, you guys can answer. And this year, perhaps we're going to feel it really strongly. Next year, what will next year be like? Because we know what last year was like, and this year has come in a very different way. So I'm going to ask you, please, Ned, for the next slide. And actually, I want to see everybody. I can't see everyone when it's up there, but I'm wondering, you could raise your hands perhaps and let me know how many of you have used a Miriam's cup before as part of your Seder. I see Susan's hand up and Chip. Let's see, anyone else? Hector's your hand up? Yes. No. Okay. Muriel, yes. Okay. So I mentioned Elijah's cup, and Elijah's cup comes near the end of the Haggadah, and maybe someone will say what Elijah's cup symbolizes. What is it? What do we say about it? You can just unmute yourself and start to speak. And if it's two of you at once, then one will stop. So Elijah's cup, who will be brave?
I'll be brave.
Thank
So we
you.
open the door for Elijah. So I always think that he's ushering in the Messianic age. He's hope. So I always think that the cup is for Elijah. I mean, when he comes in.
So thank you, Ellen. So that's exactly right, that Elijah is announcing a future that will be better than the complicated present we're living in. And we open the door, welcoming Elijah in. Anyone else want to add to what Ellen has said for us?
I think it means welcoming the stranger, because you're opening the door and letting someone come in who isn't there. So I think of it as welcoming the stranger.
Thank you, David.
That's what I always thought too. I always thought it was for anybody who wants to come in. There's a place.
So
I always thought we sent the kids to open the door, because the prayer that goes in the Haggadah at the time, pour out thy wrath upon the heathens, is not something that we want to actually hear the kids to say. You say it when the kids are at the table.
All right. So actually, Ned, I think I'm going to let you go right to that. And we'll come back to Miriam's cup. So could you move 2 pages ahead? Here it is. Thank you. So here is, it's the wrong one. I forgot, I did not copy this for you. I thought I did, and I have Vahisha Amda instead. Okay, so, but I want to respond to what Chip has brought up. So you can take that page down. Because I actually thought we didn't have time to do it, but I think it's important, and Chip brought it up. So in this book that I worked on, this is a very interesting part, that in the traditional, oh, and Chip, you're the best. He's holding it up for us. In a traditional Haggadah, we have these very difficult words of when, and they're just before, they're at the time of the cup of Elijah. Pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, upon the dominions that do not invoke your name, for they have devoured Jacob and desolated his home. Pour out your wrath on them, O God, so your blazing anger may overtake them. Pursue them in wrath and destroy them from God's heavens. So this was excised from many liberal Haggadahs. The Reform Haggadot that were produced in the first part of the century, not even this century, that were produced in America really until the beginning of, I think this was, my Haggadah was published 19 years ago. We had not had that prayer in there, we Reformed Jews. And as I was working on this Haggadah, I said, I need to make peace with this prayer. And I had found another Haggadah that I thought had done a really beautiful job. This one that was published in Israel called A Different Night by one of my teachers, Noam Tzion. And he had done some work that discovered that there was a tradition of something alternative to that. And I'm just going to quickly find what he did, because he inspired me, that there were traditions. I can't find it right away. Oh, here it is. Pour out your wrath. That there, it was not until the Bloody Crusades that biblical verses of divine anger were added to the Haggadah, because pogroms typically occurred around Pesach. But there is a medieval Haggadah that had an alternative prayer to pouring out your wrath. Well, I like the idea of the alternative prayer, but it wasn't quite modern enough for me, or it wasn't quite ancient enough for me, both. So I worked with, just as this pour out your wrath combination is lines from Psalms and Lamentation. So I looked for other lines from Psalms and Isaiah and Proverbs to come up with an alternative prayer. So I just want to share with you one example of the idea that people would stand at their door, where perhaps it was the only time they felt safe enough to open a door, because there had been too many times when Jews needed to keep their doors closed, particularly around celebrating Pesach, particularly when they were gathering with each other. I mean, we all know we've had a very complicated and painful history. We live in America. We've had a very different life experience here. So here was a prayer that I offered to balance Shvo Chamatra. I'll read it in English. Here, and this is what I prefaced it with. Other voices call for a different response to hatred and prejudice, for the Jewish spirit burns with a passion for peace. In every generation, courageous souls seek understanding with those who oppose us. Tonight, we begin a new tradition, asking God for guidance as we seek partners to shape a world of justice and peace. Give up, and these are all lines from Psalms, Isaiah, Proverbs. and Proverbs. Give up anger, abandon fury, put aside your wrath. It can only harm. The call to violence shall no longer be heard in your land, nor the cry of desolation within your borders. If our enemy is thirsty, let us give them bread to eat. If your enemy is hungry, let us give them bread to eat. If they are thirsty, give them water to drink. For when compassion and truth meet, justice and peace kiss. Chesed ve'emet niftashu, tzedek v'shalom nashaku. And then I continued, on this night we pray that in days to come, our children will remember to tell their children, freedom is God's gift and our obligation. On this night, we welcome the prophet Elijah and speak of ancient promise. On this night, we reclaim a tradition of dreams. On this night, we open wide the door of hope. So if there's a door that you open during your Seder, you'll perhaps think of these words and these ancient responses to a closed door, to an open door, welcoming the stranger, welcoming the strangers within ourselves, welcoming hope, even in a time of darkness and fear. So I want to go back now to Miriam's cup and a wonderful new tradition. So Ned, if you would go back to the Miriam's cup page that we had earlier. So probably for the last 20, 30, oh my goodness, now 40 years, people said, wait a minute, what about Miriam? She's such an important person in this story. Well, as I mentioned, Moses isn't mentioned in the story. So why would we mention Miriam? We really only mention Elijah. Well, it turns out that Miriam is linked with the coming of the Messianic age. And here we can read on the side, actually somebody who can read this easily, it's really tiny, but this Haggadah has kind of notes on the side to guide us. Marilyn, can you read these words or is it too small?
I can read it.
Great.
Miriam, who first appears in the Torah as the unnamed sister of Moses, led the Israelites in song and dance as they crossed the Red Sea. And Miriam, the prophet, took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her in dance with timbrels, and Miriam sang. Miriam is the first woman to be called prophet in the Torah. In the Midrash, the rabbis attribute this honor to her insistence that the Israelites, including her own parents, defy Pharaoh's decree forbidding marital relations between the Israelite slaves. Miriam, with her brothers Moses and Aaron, led the Israelites on their desert journey. According to rabbinic tradition, Miriam's ability to locate sources of fresh water preserved spirits and lives. When she died, the people were afraid that they too would perish. But when their period of mourning was over, they discovered fresh springs that revived them. Miriam's well accompanied our people on our 40-year journey through the wilderness.
So there's one tradition of doing this early in the Seder, and in the Haggadah that I worked on, we do it quite early in the Seder, actually right after we light the candles and do the, after the, right in the beginning. And as you can see at the very bottom, it says, pour water from the Kos Miriam into every guest's cup, so that there's a cup that is designated as Kos Miriam, or the cup of Miriam. And every guest gets a little water into his or her cup, and then we lift it, and the next page has the blessing or has the conclusion of this. So Ned, can you show us the next page, please? Thank you. Nope, the one with the picture. That one. Yeah, great. Thank you. So one of the things I love about this Haggadah is the illustrations. Ruth Weisberg here depicts her mother and a child of an uncertain gender, which we have quite a few of in this Haggadah, which I feel really proud of. That was part of Ruth's vision, that we couldn't really tell. And it's true, we can't really tell. So here is the elder pouring the water into the cup of a younger one. And I realized when I took this picture that it was a copy of the very first run of our Haggadah, and there were still some mistakes in it. So that little red circle around that period is that we needed to get rid of that. Actually, it turned out we were very unhappy with the colors, and the artist said we had to reprint it with better colors, and the subsequent publication was much better. So here we took a line from Numbers, from the Torah, and again from Isaiah to bless this, because this was a new tradition. Ale be'er anula. Ushavtem mayim b'sason mima'aneh Yeshua. Spring up well, we shall respond, for we have been promised, and you shall draw water in joy from the wells of redemption. And so here we have a new tradition, and there's new traditions being born all the time. So you may all be attending Sedarim, Seders, that have something new that never existed before, that works, that sticks, that seems like exactly the right thing. And it may be done for several years. And this is part of the beauty of our tradition. And Ned, I'm going to ask you to close this so we can all see each other now. Thank you as we wind up. But I really hope that everyone will have an opportunity to sit with some of these ideas. Perhaps you'll have some time to leaf through a Haggadah before Saturday night. And if not, maybe after Saturday night, after you've had the opportunity to be with people and to go on this journey. One more thing I think I'll say about this book that I really love is that like a Hebrew book, it opens from right to left. And on the cover is Jerusalem. But in the inside of the book, we did something that is quite unusual for a paperback. And I don't know if you can tell what is depicted here. It's hard to see. But can you tell? Where is this?
The Nile. It's the Nile, Egypt.
That's right. So it's Egypt. So here we have, as the book is opened, we see Egypt. And as the book ends,
the Jerusalem.
So the book itself is a journey, as are all of our lives. So, and we are repeating this year after year. We are moving from a place of slavery of one kind or another to, God willing, a place of greater freedom. And do we ever fully arrive? Perhaps at the end of our lives. But we Jews make this return year after year with family, with chosen family, with friends, perhaps very close, perhaps very distant. And I wish all of you to be part of this journey this year in a way that you didn't expect, because none of us expected 2021 to be as it is. So I'm happy to stay for a couple more minutes if anyone has a specific question. And I also really want to honor our commitment to ending at 7 o'clock.
Sue, you've got a bird out your window that's just singing such a lovely song. It's wonderful. Such beautiful bird song.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the windows are open because it's so gorgeous out. So thank you for hearing that. I'm so glad. Anyone else want to say a farewell word? And you can stay on if you want. But I'm so honored to have this time with you. It's a real pleasure for me, and to welcome this time of renewal together. It's truly one of the great blessings of our sacred cycle.
Thank you.
So, Chag Sameach, Kulam,
Chag
really,
Sameach.
to a very rich Pesach experience.
Thank you so
Chag
much.
Sameach,
Thank you so
Rabbi.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chag
Chag
Sameach.
Sameach,
you.
everybody.
Chag Sameach.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great seeing all of you.
Yes, you all
Right.
too.
Nice to see you in person, Jackie.
Nice to see you.
Yes, hi, Jackie.
That's right, Jackie, we haven't been able to see you.
Yeah, the first couple times I was in the dark.
So welcome. And
You're in
Chip,
the light.
you've got a book that you want to share. Oh, wonderful.
Remember, you said how it changed. Oops. You said how it changed over the years. Well, this
Yes.
is only through 1973, and look how thick it is, right?
That's
This
right.
is
Oh my.
centuries.
That's right.
And then obviously the one you had.
Yes, and this was it was called the Baskin Haggadah. This is so interesting. The one that Chip just held up is called the Baskin Haggadah. And Leonard Baskin was the artist of the Haggadah. And Ruth and I joked when we were working on our Haggadah, well, was it going to be called, the Weisberg Haggadah or the Elwell and Weisberg Haggadah? Because the poor rabbi, who was the rabbi who edited that Haggadah, was totally forgotten. Not really, but anyway.
Yeah, my family's very practical. See, this is what we use.
The concise family. Very good. All right, and Chip, are you going to show us another one?
I was going to show you. As you said, they get known for the artists. So this is the Chagall Haggadah.
Oh, wow.
I have another nice one here somewhere.
And then this one, though, is obviously not known for the artist, and that's the Highlands Haggadah. And then there was the Sarajevo.
Oh, right, the Sarajevo Haggadah. That's a very beloved and important one.
Yes, and one of the things that happened on this one was the Serbs wanted their share of the funds, money that from the sale of it.
Oh, wow.
So Rabbi, are we using the open door, do you know, at the second Seder?
I don't know. You know what?
I think we're using the new Mishkan.
Oh.
Wait, which Seder? We have two. We're doing the second night or
the second night. The Rodef second night Seder,
not the Prism Seder.
All right, well, there's a new Seder from the
That's the
Central
one.
Conference of American Rabbis, and it's quite beautiful. So, Miodea. And the art is spectacular. It's by Toby Kahn, and there's a piece. Oh, of course, we're not.
Right.
There's a piece by Toby on the first floor of Rodef, right?
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about. Okay. We have some beautiful art at Rodef Shalom.
I think her piece was made into a greeting card. I think that's one of the cards that Rodef was using.
It's him, actually. Toby Kahn is a man. Yeah. So anything else that you
Look at this one. It's another nice one from 1980.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the art, it's like a blue felt cover.
Oh, yeah. Is that Arthur Sick?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful, I love that one.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I wonder where I have it. Whoa, I'm gonna have to find it. It's not where I thought it would be. Okay.
Well, Chag Sameach, everyone. I need to go.
Okay, everyone. Chag Sameach. Thank you so
on the
much for coming.
weekend or
Thank
see
you.
you Thursday,
Chag Sameach, everyone.
not Thursday.
Okay.